It's been a busy Thursday for the Washington Commanders, as earlier we talked about Charles Leno Jr. getting cut by the Commanders, and now they have also cut starting players like Logan Thomas and Nick Gates as well. So we're going to be breaking down what these two cuts mean for the Commanders moving forward, and then we're also going to break down what or how much money the Commanders are going to have entering 2024 free agency. Spoiler alert, it's quite a bit. But before we get into it today, go ahead right now, click that subscribe button, because this is why you subscribe to the channel. Every time that they have breaking news for the Washington Commanders, we are going to have you guys covered with a free video right here on YouTube. We had you covered with Charles Leno Jr. earlier. Now we have you covered with these other two cuts. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button to never miss a big story and a big move by the Commanders here in 2024. So now let's get into Logan Thomas here, and cutting him will save this team another $6.5 million. Now his void in the roster definitely provides a gaping hole at tight end for this team. So you're definitely going to want to get a new tight end at some point during the offseason, whether that be like a free agent, like maybe a Jonnu Smith, or maybe get a guy like Zach Ertz or of Noah Fant, or you could potentially go out and get a nice young tight end like a Jatavian Sanders, for example, from Texas in the NFL draft this year. There's lots of really interesting tight end prospects, and Logan Thomas has been somebody that's been fine. He's been okay throughout his career. He's a former quarterback, and, in his route running, it definitely showed at times. He wasn't somebody that really separated against man coverage, but he was somebody that understood zone coverages and could find open spots, and then he was also a pretty decent blocker as well. So he's a decent tight end in the National Football League, but his cap hit was just getting a little bit too high, and the Commanders are really looking to beef up the amount of money that they can spend in free agency this year. And we've talked about Logan Thomas and Charles Leno Jr. as potential cut candidates so far this year. So the big question now, what is next at tight end? So I do think Cliff Kingsberry, the new offensive coordinator here in Washington, is going to want to go with a more dynamic receiving threat at tight end, somebody that can win one-on-one matchups in man coverage against linebackers and safeties in the National Football League. I think if you can get your hands on Jatavian Sanders in the second round, that is definitely something you have to take advantage of, because I honestly don't think the gap between Brock Bowers, who's definitely going round one, and it will probably be out of reach for the Commanders, and Jatavian Sanders out of Texas is not all that wide when it comes to their receiving ability. So I am definitely excited to see what the tight end position is going to look like for the Commanders, because you're bringing in a new quarterback. You're probably going to be bringing in some more weapons in terms of wide receivers, and they might even add another running back as well. And now that you're getting rid of Logan Thomas and you're cutting him, it definitely opens up the possibility here for the Commanders to get a dynamic receiving threat that can really be featured in the spread-heavy system that Cliff Kingsbury is going to be bringing to the nation's capital. Now, coming up here, I'm going to talk about Nick Gates, the center, kind of break down why the Commanders are cutting him and what the future looks like at the center position for your Washington Commanders. But before we get into that, let me know down there in the comments section. Grade today's cuts for the Washington Commanders. We cut Charles Leno Jr., Nick Gates, and Logan Thomas. So grade them for me today. A, B, C, D, or F for today's pinned comment. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by giving me a grade here. And while you go down there and answer today's pinned question, I'm going to tell you about today's sponsor at Prize Picks. Football season may be over, folks. I know I'm just as upset about it as you are. But guess what, guys? The action on the floor when it comes to collegiate and professional basketball is just heating up. Whether it's tournament season or the fight for playoff home court in the NBA, there's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of the year. Get in on the excitement with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app in the United States of America. So you might be asking yourselves, Jack, how does this work? Well, here's how you play. You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they'll go for more or less than their prize picks projection, you can even run up to 25 times your money on any entry. And then you can put in entries for anything, guys. NBA, NHL, MLB when that gets going again. And you can even do the NFL Combine, and you can put in prize picks entries for the 40 times that these people and that these NFL prospects are going to run. So I actually put in a prize picks today. I did the less on Quinyon Mitchell, ended up not getting that. Quinyon Mitchell ran a 4.33, which is unbelievable. Kamari Lassiter, I took the more on him, and then I took the less on Troy Franklin, the wide receiver out of Oregon. So I can't win this because Quinyon Mitchell already busted it up, but you can make some money right now by going to prize picks right now, downloading the app, and using code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100 today. With prize picks, it takes less than 60 seconds to make your picks. So get started right now. Again, download the prize picks app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more or pick less. It's that easy with our friends at Prize Picks. So now let's talk about Nick Gates, the center that this team brought in last offseason to start. And let's just face it, guys, it didn't go well. And I really do think that anybody that saw that signing could have told you that. Nick Gates was not a particularly effective center in the league before he came to the Washington Commanders. He was always hurt, and he ended up getting benched last year, which is definitely saying something, because if you're getting benched on the Commanders' offensive line with the lack of depth that they had at that position, that really shows you how bad Nick Gates was last year. And because of that, this team with a new regime is willing to take on $5.32 million in dead cap and barely any savings just to get him off the roster. They don't even want him as a backup, all right? So that really tells you something. But you know what? There is a possibility that this is going to be a post-June 1st cut, which would save them a little bit more. It would make them save $2 million instead of just over $300,000. So that might be what we see here. The Commanders can have 2 post-June 1st designated cuts. I believe Charles Leno Jr. is going to be one of them just because they save so much more if they make him a post-June 1st guy. And then with this one, I don't know which one it's going to be. You do save more if it is a post-June 1st cut, though, so keep that in mind. And listen, guys, I do think that this is good news. I mean, I know it's kind of harrowing to see multiple starters for this team in 2023 get cut on the same day. But you know what? Sometimes you got to burn down some of the dead wood here in order for something else and something better to grow in its place. And I absolutely think that's what Adam Peters, the GM, and Dan Quinn, the new head coach, is doing here by cutting loose Charles Leno Jr., Logan Thomas, and Nick Gates today. So after everything, after all the cuts today, the projected 2024 cap space heading into free agency is just over $100 million. Now, we still have to get confirmation that Charles Leno Jr.'s cut is a post-June 1st cut. That's what gets them over the $100 million limit here. And if it's a pre-June 1st cut, it's going to go back under by actually quite significantly. So keep that in mind. But if it's a post-June 1st cut for Charles Leno Jr., this gets the Commanders to over $100 million to spend in free agency this year, which is by far the most in the National Football League. So predict it for me down there in the comments section. Will Washington spend the most money in free agency this year? Looks like they're going to have the most cap space. So will they do the most spending? Type yes or type no. For me personally, I actually think Adam Peters and Dan Quinn are about to go on a shopping spree. So give me yes for today's question. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to today's breaking news action. Make sure you click that subscribe button so you never miss a breaking news story for the Washington Commanders during the 2024 offseason.